These files were never meant to be public, but someone reopened them. This is the Dark Bureau. New bridges open, railways shine, contracts are inked in front of cameras. The showcase is progress, landmarks of a modern, intertwined continent. But beneath the celebration, an older and deeper web persists. Repeat names, recurring networks, relationships and favours layered across decades and borders. Ceremony and signatures draw attention, yet their value lies not in their novelty, but in their link to a pattern spanning the continent's biggest projects. The same actors appear, unmoved across administrations and eras, marking not coincidence, but a deliberate and enduring design. Europe's latest infrastructure wave is powered less by steel and cranes than by paperwork, private understandings, and familiar voices on the phone. The real machinery is an unbroken flow of documents, late-night revisions, and small insider tips. What looks routine is its greatest disguise. State capture becomes mundane, the cost of doing business. Massive infusions of new funding, like the EU's $220 billion for infrastructure in 2022, disappear into the system, visible in glossy announcements but vanishing in budget lines. Costs balloon, projects stall, and trust erodes. When ribbon cuttings no longer match reality on the ground, scrutiny finally turns to the system itself. At the system's heart is public procurement, built as a check yet functioning as a funnel. Competitive, transparent tenders on paper yield unchanging winners in reality. Competition is reenacted, outcomes choreographed for predictability. Repeat players, whose names echo through award lists, are chosen not for innovation, but for connectivity. The ideal of an open market dissolves into ritual, with contracts smoothly moving to insiders. The pipeline narrows with each phase, channeling public spending to a select circle, out of reach to most. The pattern is visible from minor rural bridges to multi-country rail links. Oversight agencies become formality, audit procedures evade true checks, and even EU monitors are hampered by fleeting documentation and crafty delay. The same names occupy multiple seats: contractors, consultants, retired officials turned advisors. As EU funds circulate, so do old alliances. Former classmates sit at adjacent tables. Retired civil servants return as experts. The line between monitor and beneficiary blurs. Infrastructure is built atop lasting patronage, not only concrete and steel. State capture operates with subtlety and self-interest more than overt crime. Officially, rules are published and enforced. Practically, access depends on insider awareness. Neutral-seeming criteria are tailored to local favourites. Companies adept at passing vague requirements and alerted minutes before crucial changes. Deadlines shrink, forms multiply, and minor technical missteps, an unlabelled file, a missing page, are fatal. Bids from outsiders are discarded unopened, real competition quietly shut out. Committees and agencies themselves become invested in routine, drawn by stability, political quiet, and the comfort of known outcomes. It's less individual payoffs and more about protecting status and continued access. The incentives binding this system are powerful. Elected officials secure campaign support and enduring loyalties. A contractor, grateful for today's work, becomes tomorrow's donor or backer. Bureaucrats guard their careers, smoothing approvals for established firms and paving paths for prominent post-retirement jobs. Private businesses bask in a near-guaranteed pipeline of state work. The revolving door is normalisation, not scandal. Ministers and heads of agencies reappear as consultants, lobbyists, or board members, carrying critical knowledge and relationships. Outsiders find the rules and ethos subtly set against them, and even reformers are assailed by the logic of continuity. A close look at financial flows reveals how structure prevails over intent. Only a fraction of every public euro touches actual materials or labour. Much is diverted, legally, via subcontracting, consulting agreements, and strategic studies. Losing bidders are later seen as subcontractors or consultants, their loss recouped out of sight. Each intermediary takes a margin as money is layered between entities, often moving across borders and into loosely regulated jurisdictions. By the time an audit arrives, funds are braided through obscure networks, with little direct trail. Even anti-money laundering tools struggle against the legal complexity and the prioritisation of margin adjustments over outright theft. Accumulated across hundreds of projects, this skim drains billions from intended targets. Continuity, not chaos, sustains this system. Politicians deliver projects while deepening ties, hungry for visible results and future positions. Civil servants guide contracts to trusted hands, anticipating reward via later career moves. Firms prosper and the network self-reinforces. Critics are marginalised, and real investigations are stalled by legal intricacy and slow-moving bureaucracy. Risk-averse actors adapt, exploiting routine rather than challenging it. The design endures not because of a single mastermind, but because the structure benefits enough powerful interests to self-propagate, encoded in policy and tradition. Investigative journalists and NGO watchdogs pry at the network, but hit hardened procedural shells. Whistleblowers flag suspicious cost overruns, opaque decisions, or match lists of winning companies against past connections. Investigations chase documentation scattered between countries. Delays and non-cooperation slow everything. At EU level, agencies like OLAF or the Court of Auditors are mandated to intervene, yet their efforts are undercut by shifting jurisdiction and slow data sharing. Most cases linger unresolved. Even when misdeeds surface, they're pinned on minor faults and lost in years of legal fog. Oversight is procedural, and its opacity shields entrenched flows. The scale is daunting. Almost a fifth of regional EU infrastructure funding is tainted by procurement irregularities, billions every year, enough to transform public services or accelerate a green transition. Drip away. Anti-corruption offices exist, but typically react. Compliance programs bustle, but struggle under constraints. Oversight boards sometimes form only under intense media or EU pressure, and even then are heavily staffed by insiders. International tools, like blacklists or transparency registries, meet legal stonewalling and minor adjustments from the network. Real accountability is rare. Exposure is usually met with shallow reforms and shifting faces. Occasionally, direct evidence emerges. A procurement tender pre-filled with preferred names, a media contract consistently won by linked firms, major consultancies designing rules only to win the contracts themselves. Systems adapt faster than prosecutors. Audit bodies are shuffled, committees are restructured, reviews delayed or shifted to more pliant agencies. As knowledge of capture grows, so too does the agility with which networks absorb and deflect scrutiny, keeping essential flows unbroken. The price is paid daily. Crumbling bridges, incomplete schools, delayed trams, failures barely noted in headlines but deeply felt. Trust in public process fades. Citizens disengage, convinced that improvement is a fiction. Election turnout wanes, especially for votes tied to public works or infrastructure. Legitimacy of even completed projects is clouded by suspicion. Reformers who push too hard face subtle blockades, proposals buried, legal threats levied, or projects quietly sabotaged. What corrodes is not a single bridge, but the public realm itself. The risk is not always spectacular catastrophe, but slow, persistent atrophy. Services decline, hope dampens, and the rules seem to serve only themselves. Sometimes the network is forced to yield, a high-profile resignation, a trial, a contract annulled. But the response is almost always measured and incremental. A resignation may briefly disrupt flows, only for the network to quietly adapt, renaming companies, shifting leadership, or shuffling addresses. Auditors and commissions recommend changes, blacklists are drawn up, but familiar patterns reassert. Institutional memory, like capital, simply migrates, not vanishes. For every actor removed, another, backed by the same incentives, fills the vacuum. Europe's infrastructure is more than what appears on the map. It's layered with an invisible design. Who profits, who preserves, who adapts. The battle is not just about concrete, but about the silent networks running parallel to every official project. Attempts at reform are outpaced by a logic of adaptation. The true legacy is a blueprint for how influence persists. The primary danger isn't institutional collapse, but the further entrenchment of a system that maintains itself in the open. Each new project and each new oversight tool risks only cementing the network further. Europe's silent state capture isn't a scandal hidden in the shadows. It's a habit, quietly written into daily administration, incentivized at every turn, and reinforced by the very actors charged to prevent it. The risk isn't that the system breaks, but that it succeeds imperceptibly and continuously beneath each new ribbon cut.